From this reference to the rib witch on Homer Simpson, to this hidden side minifigure that got possessed. These are all of the secrets you missed in LEGO minifigures, starting with an insane transformation in the collectible minifigures. Back in 2011, Series 5 of CMF came out, and one of them was the Lumberjack. Just a completely normal guy with a name tag that says Kel. Remember that part. 4 years later, in 2015, Series 14 came out, and the theme for that series was monsters. One of the figures in that wave is called the Wolf Guy, who's supposed to be a werewolf. But if you look at what he's wearing, he's got the exact same plaid shirt as the Lumberjack from Series 5. And if you look even closer, he still has the same name tag too. LEGO literally took a happy woodsman who was just trying to make a living cutting down trees and turned him into a werewolf 4 years later. And speaking of people becoming monsters over time, let me show you another transformation that took way longer to be revealed. Way back in 1997, there was a castle sub-theme called Fright Nights. The main villain of Fright Nights was a character named Basil the Bat Lord. The Fright Nights theme ended in 1998, and Basil just kind of disappeared from LEGO after that. But then in 2024, over 25 years later, Series 25 of CMF came out, and one of the figures in that series is called the Vampire Knight. At first glance, this just seems like a random vampire character wearing knight armor. But if you look closely at the details, his shield still has the Fright Nights bat emblem on it, the exact same logo from the original 1997 sets. And if you read his backstory, it lines up perfectly with Basil the Batlord's original character from the 90s. So this Vampire Knight is Basil the Batlord himself. But now, let me tell you about the single rarest minifigure in the entire history of CMF. In 2018, Series 18 came out to commemorate 40 years of the minifigure, and LEGO decided to hide an ultra-rare chase figure in the series at 1 per box odds. There was one of these guys per box, which had 60 blind bags, so it was super rare. The minifigure in question was none other than the classic policeman, who was a near-perfect recreation of his version from 1978. And as if that wasn't enough of a tribute, his accessory tile actually shows the original box art for the set he came in back in the day. However, the classic policeman wasn't the only deep reference in Series 18. There's also the dragon suit guy, and most people think he's just someone wearing a generic dragon costume. But it's way more specific than that. This figure is a direct recreation of the LEGO Castle Dragon from the Dragon Mountain set from 2013. Every detail was specifically designed to match the dragon from that specific set. This one's nowhere near as popular as Brickley, so I don't really know why they chose him, but while we're talking about Series 18, there's another detail about it that explains why certain figures even exist. Series 18 had the brick suit guy and brick suit girl, and when they came out, most people thought they were just kind of random. But here's what they didn't realize. 2018 wasn't just the 40th anniversary of the minifigure. It was also the 60th anniversary of the LEGO brick itself. The modern LEGO brick with tubes and studs was patented in 1958, exactly 60 years before Series 18 came out. So this series was actually celebrating 2 major anniversaries at the same time. The 40th anniversary of the minifigure with the classic policeman, and the 60th anniversary of the brick with the brick suit figures. But now, let me show you something in Series 16 that you definitely didn't notice. This series came out in 2016, and one of the minifigs was the Rogue, who was a pretty standard castle-themed character. But if you look at the thing that's holding his cloak together, there's a tiny wolf pack emblem printed on it. Most people would never notice this detail. The wolf pack was a castle faction from 1992, so this reference went back over 20 years by the time Series 16 came out. And speaking of castle factions, Series 24 came out in 2023, and one of the minifigs is the Falconer. She's wearing black falcon colors and carrying a genuine black falcon faction bird, which is actually really important. The Black Falcons became one of the most iconic castle factions after they were introduced in 1984. And in all that time, LEGO had never actually given them a real Falcon figure until this minifigure came out in 2023. That's not all though. The Falconer's design was specifically made to fit perfectly into 3 major castle sets from the modern era. She fits into the medieval blacksmith set, the medieval castle set, and the Lion Knights castle set. LEGO designed her to be compatible with modern castle sets so collectors could add her into those builds. But the Falconer and the Rogue weren't the only castle faction references in Series 24. The Orc figure carries a shield, and if you look at what's printed on it, you'll see an updated version of the Troll faction logo that ran from 2007 to 2008. LEGO didn't just copy and paste the old emblem from those sets. They actually redesigned it and modernized it specifically for this minifigure. But the castle references keep going in Series 27. This one came out in 2025, and one of the minifigs is the Wolfpack Beastmaster. This guy has an actual wolf companion that comes with him. Now, that might not seem like a big deal until you realize that this is the very first Wolfpack minifigure in the entire history of LEGO Castle to actually come with a wolf. The Wolfpack faction has been around since 1992, and not a single one of their sets ever included an actual wolf until this minifigure. It's the exact same thing that happened with the Black Falcon faction. But one of the coolest castle references is the classic King minifigure in Series 13. If you read his biography, it sounds like it's just telling a story about a fictional king, but it's not fiction at all. His bio specifically says he recruited 14 brave and loyal knights to build a fine golden castle. This is the exact inventory of the actual 1978 Yellow Castle set. It came with exactly 14 knight minifigures, and obviously it's golden. But it gets even better because his bio also makes a joke about how they had to build wooden horses for the knights, since horse pieces didn't exist back in 1978. The amount we learned about Castle just from this one minifigure is genuinely insane, but there's still more to learn. Series 19 came out in 2019, and one of the minifigs is the Fright Knight, who obviously references the Fright Knights faction. But LEGO didn't just recreate the original designs. They reimagined this character as a ghost knight with transparent blue skin and a transparent blue sword. The original Fright Knights theme never had anything like this, so why did LEGO even do it? Well, we've already seen that they wanted to redesign certain things from Castle. So for this minifigure, they used modern day technology to make him way cooler. Back in the 90s, LEGO didn't make anything like this. But now, let me show you a famous LEGO character hiding in plain sight in this same series. The character I want to focus on is the Jungle Explorer. Pretty generic name for a guy in explorer gear, but this minifigure is actually Johnny Thunder from the Adventurers theme, and it was directly confirmed by the designer Austin Carlson in an interview. LEGO couldn't use the name Johnny Thunder on the packaging for licensing or trademark reasons, so they just called him Jungle Explorer and matched the details to Johnny's old design. He's an absolute hit in the AFOL community, but what a lot of people don't know is that LEGO actually did this with a way less popular character. Series 18 had the race car guy, and if you look at the printing on him, there are clues to who he really is. He has R Racer printed on his belt buckle, and his torso has an RR logo on it. But what does all this mean? Well, it confirms that he's Rocket Racer from the LEGO Racers game, which came out in 1999. Rocket Racer was the final boss of that game, and he'd never even been made in real life before. LEGO Racers is pretty popular now, but nowhere near as popular as Johnny Thunder, so it makes sense why most people don't know this one. Clearly, LEGO loves to reference themselves, but did you know they do it in the accessories too? You can find one in Series 24, which came out in 2023. One of the figures is the Newspaper Kid, and if you look at what's printed on the front page, it shows the classic policeman from Series 18. So a CMF figure is holding a newspaper with another CMF figure printed on it. Very typical of LEGO. Another thing that's really common is for LEGO designers to hide signatures in sets they make. But did you know they do it in CMF too? Series 11 came out in 2013, and one of the figures is the diner waitress. She's wearing a classic 1950s diner uniform with a name tag, and if you look at that name tag, it says Tara. which is a direct reference to LEGO designer Tara Wilkes, who worked on CMF. It's pretty funny that this is basically just a regular signature. But speaking of interesting designer decisions, Series 26 came out in 2024 with a space theme, and one of the figures is Orion. Now, most minifigures get designed by starting with a character concept and then figuring out how to build it later, but Orion was made completely backwards. The designers wanted to use as many transparent pieces as possible on one singular minifigure as a technical challenge. And only after this did they figure out what character would actually justify having all of these transparent parts. Someone suggested making a constellation, and specifically Orion made sense because his constellation form is human-shaped, so they ran with it. To complete the reference, his shield is printed with the actual Orion constellation map you can see in the sky. But not every CMF reference is this obvious, because sometimes LEGO references other franchises in super sneaky ways. Series 18 came out in 2018, and one of the figures is the Cactus Girl. And if you've ever played any of the Final Fantasy games, you'll immediately recognize what this is. The design is an unmistakable reference to the Cactuar, which is a recurring character throughout the entire Final Fantasy series. And Series 24 had another pop culture reference that works in two different ways. One of the minifigures in this one is called the T-Rex Costume Fan. And even though I don't know why LEGO gave it this name, I know exactly what it's referencing. The first thing is the giant T-Rex in the Jurassic World theme. They pretty much have the exact same design, but the second thing is way better. This minifigure is also a reference to the inflatable T-Rex costume that's always going viral online. I swear I've seen videos of this thing for like the last 10 years, and I genuinely can't believe that LEGO made a minifigure that basically looks just like it. But one of the minifigs in Series 26 had a technical problem that LEGO had to work around with printing, and that minifigure was the Ice Planet Explorer. This minifig references the Ice Planet 2002 sub-theme, which ran from 1993 to 1994. But there's a problem with it. That sub-theme's most defining feature was trans neon orange plastic. That specific color was everywhere in these sets, but LEGO retired it forever ago and doesn't make it anymore. So how did they make an Ice Planet reference without the signature color? They printed orange directly onto a white helmet visor and printed it onto the robot penguin's eye slit. They completely faked it, and honestly, it worked pretty well. But the Blacktron mutant from Series 26 has a detail that most casual fans completely miss. When people see Blacktron, they assume it's referencing the original faction from 1987, which is the most famous one that everyone remembers. But this figure doesn't reference that version at all. It specifically references Blacktron 2, which is the sequel that ran from 1991 to 1993. You can tell because of the white torso and the lime green B logo. Those are the colors Blacktron 2 used. Super nerdy, I know, but it had to be said. Anyways, to end the video, I'm going to tell you about a hilarious minifigure that's rumored to be coming out this year. There are reports that a Bionicle cosplayer minifigure based on Tahu is coming out, who was one of the main characters in Bionicle. This would be such a meta and funny choice. The entire point of Bionicle was that it used buildable action figures, not minifigures. But this is nowhere near the best part. Obviously, Bionicle hasn't been around for a while now, and people are always asking LEGO to bring it back. Usually, companies don't even acknowledge stuff like this, but LEGO made a post on Instagram saying, "This is who you're asking to bring back Bionicle," and used a picture of a baby minifigure with it. Clearly, they're never bringing it back, so making that Tahu minifig is one of the craziest moves they'd ever pull, if they actually do it. But let's take a look at LEGO Simpsons. There are only 51 minifigures, but there's a lot to cover. So let's start with Series 1 of the collectible Simpsons minifigure packs. Now, since this was the first pack, a lot of these minifigs are completely default and don't come with anything special, but some of them definitely need to be talked about. So let's start with everyone's favorite little rascal, Bart. Bart comes with his lime green skateboard, but the hidden gem is his back printing. He has a slingshot printed on his back that goes down onto his shorts, which actually wasn't on him in the Simpsons house set, which came out first. So this was a really cool addition that no one expected. The slingshot is Bart's signature weapon for his pranks throughout Springfield, so obviously LEGO had to include it. They could have just given him a physical slingshot piece as an accessory and called it a day, but instead they went the extra mile and made it part of his design. Before we keep going though, I need to tell you something special about these minifigs from Series 1, because this wasn't just any regular release. Series 1 was the very first licensed collectible minifigure series LEGO ever made. Before this, every minifigure pack was just generic LEGO characters, but The Simpsons changed everything and paved the way for Disney, DC, and Marvel series that followed. But it gets even crazier, because every single Simpsons minifigure has a unique head mold to match how they look in the show. This was the first time LEGO created an entire series without a single standard headpiece, which is honestly insane when you think about it. They could have just slapped some printed faces on regular heads and moved on, but they didn't. They made custom molds for every single character, and that's part of what makes these minifigures so memorable. Anyways, next let's talk about Maggie, because she comes with one of the best references in the entire series. Her accessory is Bobo, Mr. Burns' childhood teddy bear, and this references the Season 5 episode Rosebud, which is a full-on parody of Citizen Kane where Mr. Burns desperately searches for his lost teddy bear.
Give me my bear, Simpson.
Only to find out that Maggie has it. The attention to detail on this thing is ridiculous. Bobo has a tear on his belly showing stuffing, a dangling eye, and really rough stitching, just like how he is in the episode. Speaking of attention to detail, Ralph Wiggum comes with one of the most heartbreaking Simpsons references ever. He has a Valentine's Day card with a train reading "I choose you," which is from Season 4, Episode 15, I Love Lisa. In this episode, Lisa gives Ralph this card out of pity, but Ralph actually thought she liked him, which led to one of the saddest moments in the entire show. But did you know that this was actually based on a real story? Screenwriter Al Jean got a similar Valentine in 3rd grade, and he loved it so much that he had the phrase inscribed on his wedding ring. So this isn't just a reference to the show, it's a reference to a real-life event that inspired the episode, and now it's a LEGO accessory. But now let's talk about Grandpa, because his accessory might be the most famous one in the entire theme. He comes with a newspaper that says "Old Man Yells at Cloud," and if you've been on the internet at all since like 2015, you've seen this meme before. It comes from Season 13, Episode 13, The Old Man and the Key, where Abe uses this newspaper clipping as the photo for his driver's license. The image has become one of the most popular Simpsons memes on the internet, so putting it on an actual printed tile is genius. They could have put anything on that piece, but they chose something everyone's seen before, which was a great idea. Ned Flanders might be more perfect though, because he comes with 2 accessories, and both of them tell you everything you need to know about his character. The first one is a toolbox that says "Property of Ned Flanders," which is obviously referencing how Homer is always stealing his stuff. But the second one is way more interesting. It's a white mug that says "I Heart Southpaws," which references Ned being left-handed. He's extremely proud to be a lefty, so much in fact that he opened the Leftorium, a store selling products for left-handed people in the episode when Flanders failed from Season 3. The store isn't talked about in that many episodes, but Ned being left-handed is a pretty important trait for his character. But now let's jump to Series 2, because this is where things really start getting interesting. Homer shows up in his formal blue suit carrying a heart-shaped box of chocolates, and Marge is wearing her elegant orange dress with white gloves, red lipstick, a blue purse, and red flowers. Both of these outfits directly reference Season 1, Episode 13, Some Enchanted Evening. In this episode, Homer brings Marge a wilted rose and chocolates to apologize for neglecting her, and they go on a romantic date. But did you know that this was actually supposed to be the first Simpsons episode ever? It was the original pilot, but it had to be delayed and reanimated because of severe quality issues. The animation was so bad that they just could not air it first, so they had to push it back and fix it. So not only is LEGO technically referencing the first episode ever made, they're also referencing an episode with a really cool story behind it, which makes it even better. Series 2 also gave us Bartman, which is Bart's superhero alter ego. Bartman first appeared in Season 2, Episode 21, 3 Men and a Comic Book, when Bart needed a costume for a comic convention discount. But he's more famously known for Season 18's Revenge is a Dish Best Served 3 Times, that had a full Batman parody origin story. His accessory is his trusty slingshot, which makes sense since obviously he's still Bart. But the thing is, Bartman isn't the only superhero in Series 2, because Milhouse shows up as Fallout Boy. Milhouse is wearing a green mask, a blue costume, and a lime green cape. and this references Season 7, Episode 2, Radioactive Man from 1995. In the episode, Milhouse was casted as Fall Out Boy in the Radioactive Man movie, beating out Bart, who was an inch too short. There's something you might not know about Fall Out Boy though. The band Fall Out Boy actually got their name from this character after someone shouted it out in the crowd at one of their first shows. So not only is this a reference to The Simpsons, but it's also a reference to a real band that was inspired by the show. Lisa also makes an appearance in Series 2, and her accessory is Snowball 2, the family's black cat. Snowball 2 replaced the original Snowball, who was white, and shows up all throughout the show. The Simpsons family just isn't complete without their pets, so it's a good thing Santa's Little Helper also came to play in Series 2. So if you collect both series, you can actually have the entire Simpsons family with all of their pets. It's one of those things where LEGO clearly planned it out from the beginning, making sure collectors had a reason to buy both series to complete the family. But now let's talk about Hans Moleman, because this guy might be one of the most tragic characters in all of Springfield. He's always dying in different accidents, only to come back later like nothing even happened. But his accessory is a printed tile of his revoked driver's license. This references the episode Principal Charming, where he fails his driver's test not once, but twice. He failed the first time because of an eye exam, but the second time he failed as soon as he hit the gas pedal. Somehow this guy is 31 years old with cataracts so bad that he can't even see, and this driver's license bit is one of his best, so of course LEGO had to give him one to honor it. Moving on to Edna Krabappel, Bart's 4th grade teacher, she comes with a pink mug and a printed tile showing Woodrow, which is actually a picture of NHL legend Gordie Howe. This references Season 3, Episode 16, Bart the Lover, where Bart pranks his lonely teacher by catfishing her as a man named Woodrow, using Howe's photo. But here's where the backstory gets interesting. The writers originally wanted to use Johnny Unitas, but couldn't get the rights, so Al Jean, who is a Detroit Red Wings fan, suggested Gordie Howe instead. But Waylon Smithers has one of my favorite references in this whole video. He comes with a Malibu Stacy doll that of course has a new hat, which is from Season 5, Episode 14, Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy. In this episode, we find out that Smithers has the world's biggest Malibu Stacy collection, and we see him running with all of the little girls to try and get the doll first, which is obviously hilarious, but he's got to build up his collection somehow. Actually, I lied before. The accessory with Dr. Hibbert might actually be my favorite. He comes with an x-ray of Homer's brain, but it isn't just any x-ray. It's referencing Season 12, Episode 9, Homer with no E, where we find out why Homer's so stupid. When he was a kid, he had a habit of shoving crayons up his nose, and apparently one of them never came back. Eventually, it made its way up to his brain, and made Homer into the stupid guy we all know. The best part of this episode is when Homer asks his doctor how he never noticed the crayon before, and Hibbert tells him his thumb always covered it up on the x-rays.
My thumb must have covered up the crayon every time.
It's such a ridiculous explanation, but it fits perfectly with the show's humor. All of these minifigures so far have been in packs, so now let's talk about some that came in actual sets. Homer in the Krusty Burger set has a stain on his shirt, and this is a reference to the Rib Witch. For anyone who doesn't know, the Rib Witch is this legendary sandwich from Season 14, Episode 15, I'm spelling as fast as I can, where Homer becomes completely obsessed with it. He follows the Rib Witch tour around the country like a rock band, and the sandwich becomes this mythical thing that everyone wants.
I'll give you anything for it.
Homer literally can't get enough of them, so it only makes sense that he'd have a stain on his shirt. I mean, this is Homer we're talking about here. Krusty the Clown in the Krusty Burger set also has a special outfit. It's a reference to the episode Coming to Homerica from Season 20, where Krusty launches a veggie burger campaign. In the episode, the Krusty Burger gets named the unhealthiest fast food place in the world.
Studies show your Krusty Burger is the unhealthiest fast food item in the world.
So Krusty tries to fight the allegations by making a vegetarian burger called the Mother Nature Burger. But unfortunately, one of the ingredients got contaminated by rat meat. So not only was it not vegetarian, but everyone ended up getting food poisoning too. LEGO basing Krusty's outfit on this episode is pretty good, because it's one of his most memorable business failures, and there really are a lot of them. There's one other real Simpsons set, the Quickie Mart, and in this one, Chief Wiggum got something special that he'd never gotten before. This version of him comes with donut stains printed on his uniform and in the corner of his mouth. This is a direct nod to his cop and donut stereotype from the show, and honestly, it's such a simple detail that makes the minifigure so much better. Chief Wiggum is constantly eating donuts throughout the series, and since he's right outside the place he's always buying them from, it's no wonder he has stains all over himself. It's the kind of thing where LEGO could have easily left it out and nobody would have complained, but they added it anyway because it makes the character so much more authentic. These minifigures are hiding more than just references though. The Simpsons minifigures were the first ones to have short legs molded in 2 different colors to make shorts like they did for Bart. Before this, if LEGO wanted to make shorts, they'd either paint them or give up and make each leg one color. But The Simpsons changed that forever. A lot of minifigures these days have multicolor molds for their legs, and it's all because of The Simpsons. They didn't just revolutionize molds though. Itchy and Scratchy were some of the first minifigures to have fully rubber heads. Remember, these guys came out back in 2014, and back then it really wasn't that common to find a minifigure like this. The only one I can think of is the shark from the Atlantis theme, which came out a few years before, but now there are loads of minifigures with rubber heads. The Simpsons minifigures were not only a huge success, but they were a great experiment that showed LEGO what they could get away with. The cool thing about the minifigs in Series 1 is that they were in the special episode Brick Like Me from Season 25, Episode 20, which came out just a few days after the minifigures were released. In the episode, Homer wakes up in a LEGO version of Springfield, and it's basically one giant love letter to LEGO. The timing of this episode couldn't be better, and I think we can all agree that it's a good thing the ones in real life didn't come out like the ones from the episode. The custom head molds look so much better. But another theme with a ton of references is LEGO Star Wars. Starting with when Luke and Han disguise themselves as stormtroopers. Now, if you've seen A New Hope, you know exactly what scene this is from. Luke and Han need to rescue Princess Leia from the Death Star detention block, so they knock out two stormtroopers and steal their armor. It's one of the most iconic scenes in the entire original trilogy, and it's been recreated in multiple LEGO sets. The UCS Death Star from 2025 comes with both Luke and Han in stormtrooper disguises. But it's not just that set. The 2016 Death Star had them too, and even the original 2008 Death Star had these minifigures. LEGO has made this scene so many times because it's just that memorable. I mean, the whole "aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper" line is one of the most quoted moments in Star Wars history.
Short for a stormtrooper.
So of course LEGO keeps bringing it back. But speaking of stormtroopers, the 2025 UCS Death Star also has one of the funniest minifigures in the entire theme, the Hot Tub Stormtrooper. Now, if you've never played the LEGO Star Wars video games, you might be confused by this. But in LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, and LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, there's this running gag where you can find stormtroopers just chilling in hot tubs around the Death Star. It's completely random and has nothing to do with the actual movies, but it became such a beloved Easter egg that LEGO decided to make it a real minifigure. So in the 2025 Death Star set, there's literally a stormtrooper relaxing in a hot tub, which is super funny. But let's move on to another iconic moment from the original trilogy: Han Solo frozen in carbonite. In The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader captures Han in Cloud City and uses him as a test subject for the carbon freezing chamber. The whole scene is super intense because nobody knows if Han will actually survive, and it ends with him getting frozen and handed over to Boba Fett. It's one of the most dramatic moments in the entire original trilogy, and LEGO has recreated it multiple times. The carbon freezing chamber set comes with a Han and carbonite piece, and so does the massive Betrayal at Cloud City set. But here's what's interesting. The Han and carbonite piece isn't even technically a minifigure. It's a printed tile that looks like Han frozen in carbonite. LEGO's used this piece in so many sets over the years that it's become one of the most recognizable elements in the Star Wars theme. But Han getting frozen isn't the only iconic moment from Cloud City. There's also the legendary duel between Luke and Darth Vader, which is where the "I am your father" reveal happens.
I am your father.
This is arguably the most famous plot twist in movie history, and LEGO has made multiple sets based on this scene. The Bespin duel set is specifically designed to recreate this moment, and it comes with Luke in his Bespin outfit and Darth Vader. The set even has a weather vane that Luke can hang from after Vader cuts off his hand. But the bigger version of this scene is in the Betrayal at Cloud City set, which has the entire carbon freezing chamber and the duel location, so you can recreate both iconic moments in one massive set. Anyways, let's talk about another iconic moment from The Empire Strikes Back: Luke training with Yoda on Dagobah. This is where Yoda teaches Luke about the Force, and it's where we get the legendary
Do or do not. There is no try.
The Dagobah Jedi training diorama set is specifically designed to recreate this moment, and it comes with Luke in his Dagobah training outfit and Yoda with his walking stick. The set has the swamp environment, Yoda's hut, and even the X-Wing sinking into the water. It's one of the most detailed diorama sets LEGO's made for Star Wars, and it perfectly captures the feel of that training sequence. But now let's jump to Revenge of the Sith, because there's a minifigure that captures one of the most emotional moments in the entire trilogy, when Anakin officially becomes Darth Vader. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Obi-Wan have their fight on Mustafar, and after Obi-Wan wins, Anakin is left in pretty bad shape, but the worst for him is yet to come. He finds out that he killed Padme in his rage.
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
which is exactly what Palpatine wanted. He's never been more vulnerable, so Palpatine takes the chance to make him a fully fledged Sith Lord, and puts him in the suit, masking him as Darth Vader. It's the most memorable scene in the prequels by far, and the Emperor Palpatine's shuttle set comes with an Anakin minifigure from right after the fight. Inside the ship, you can put Darth Vader's helmet on him, recreating the scene, which is super sick. But there are also minifigures recreating the fight itself. Obviously, one of the best moments from the fight is the "You Were the Chosen One" scene.
You were the chosen one!
Because it's one of the most tragic moments in the entire saga. The duel on Mustafar's set recreates a small part of this battle, and it comes with Anakin and Obi-Wan in their Mustafar outfits. It isn't very big, so it's not like you can reenact the entire fight, but it's a good set for displaying. Obviously, Anakin was never the same after this fight. And in The Empire Strikes Back, there's a brief scene where you can see him in a Bacta tank getting medical treatment. It's easy to miss because it happens so fast, but it's one of the only times in the original movies where you see Vader vulnerable and injured. And the Vader's castle set comes with a Vader minifigure that's specifically designed for the Bacta tank. If you only casually watch the movies, this one might go right over your head. But let's jump to Return of the Jedi, so we can talk about Emperor Palpatine in the throne room. The Emperor's throne room diorama set recreates the final confrontation between Luke, Vader, and Palpatine, and it comes with a Palpatine minifigure that has lightning hands. This is referencing the moment when Darth Vader finally breaks free from Palpatine and throws him over the edge inside the Death Star. Another iconic moment with Palpatine is when Mace Windu and the other Jedi try to arrest him when he was still the Chancellor. This is the scene where Palpatine reveals himself as Darth Sidious and says the legendary line,
I am the Senate.
It's one of the most memed moments from the prequels, and LEGO has included versions of this scene in various Coruscant sets over the years. The minifigures show Palpatine in his Chancellor robes before he transforms into the Emperor, and it's such a pivotal moment in the story. Oh, and of course, it's also where he says his famous line, "Unlimited power." But let's go all the way back to the beginning, to the Phantom Menace, because there's a small minifigure detail in there that's easy to miss. The duel on Naboo set comes with Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan, and it's recreating their fight in the Naboo generator. This is where Darth Maul kills Qui-Gon, and it's one of the most shocking moments in the Phantom Menace. But here's the thing, the Qui-Gon minifigure has two different faceplates, and one of them is very reminiscent of his face when he dies. It's not explicitly labeled as his death face, but if you look at it, it has this pained, exhausted expression that looks exactly like Qui-Gon in his final moments. We all remember what happens next. Obi-Wan cuts Darth Maul in half, and he falls down a shaft, and everyone assumes he's dead. But in the Clone Wars, it's revealed that Maul survived and got cybernetic spider legs to replace his missing lower half. The Mandalorian speeder set comes with a Darth Maul minifigure that has these mechanical legs, and it's such a specific reference to the Clone Wars. Like, if you only watched the movies, you'd have no idea why Maul is still alive or why he has robot legs. But if you watch the show, you know this is one of the most important plot points in all of Star Wars. But now, let's talk about Padme in the Geonosis Arena from Attack of the Clones. This is the scene where Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan are chained up and about to be executed by giant monsters, and it leads to a massive battle. LEGO has made multiple Geonosis Arena sets over the years, and they all come with Padme in her torn white outfit from that scene. It's one of the most iconic looks for Padme, and it's instantly recognizable to anyone who's seen Attack of the Clones. Another key moment from Attack of the Clones is when Obi-Wan investigates the clone army on Kamino. This is where he discovers that someone ordered a massive army of clones without the Jedi knowing about it, and it leads to his fight with Jango Fett. LEGO included Obi-Wan in his Kamino outfit in loads of Jedi Starfighter sets over the years, and it's referencing this specific investigation. Another Clone Wars character that's gotten multiple minifigures is Captain Rex. He's one of the most beloved characters from the show, and he's a clone trooper who fights alongside Anakin and Ahsoka throughout the Clone Wars. The minifigure that's most iconic is Rex in his Phase 2 armor, which he wears during the later seasons of the show. This is also the version of Rex who resists Order 66 and removes his inhibitor chip, so he doesn't turn on the Jedi like all of the other clones. He's one of the few clones who stays loyal to his Jedi friends, and he becomes a huge part of the rebellion later on. Speaking of the rebellion, let's jump to A New Hope, because there's a really specific minifigure that most people forget about. In the 2011 Millennium Falcon set, there's a Luke minifigure wearing a blast shield helmet. This is the training scene on the Millennium Falcon, where Obi-Wan teaches Luke to use the Force by having him deflect blaster shots from a training remote while wearing the helmet. It's a quick scene in the movie, but it's an important moment because it's the first time Luke actually starts to understand the Force. One of the most important important minifigures from that era is unmasked Kylo Ren. In The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, there are several scenes where Kylo takes off his helmet and reveals his face as Ben Solo. These moments are crucial because they show his internal conflict. He's trying to be like Darth Vader, but he's struggling with the light side of the Force. The unmasked Kylo Ren minifigure appears in sets like the Battle on Takodana set and the Snoke's Throne Room set, and it shows his face with the scar that Rey gave him. It's a very specific look that captures his character arc throughout the sequels. But one thing I haven't really touched on yet is the Mandalorian, and there's a minifigure that just came out and it's already become iconic. Grogu in his hover pram. Set 75403 is literally just Grogu sitting in his hover pram, but it also comes with a little minifigure version. In the show, Grogu rides around in this thing because he's too small and tired to walk everywhere, and it became one of the most recognizable things from The Mandalorian. The Lego version is built to scale and has all the details from the show, like the closed canopy and the hovering mechanism. It's such a simple set, but it perfectly captures one of the cutest moments from modern Star Wars. But now, let's talk about one of the most controversial minifigures in Lego Star Wars, Darth Jar Jar. For years, there was a huge fan theory that Jar Jar Binks was actually a secret Sith Lord who was manipulating everyone in the prequels. The theory got so big that it became a giant meme on the internet, and eventually Star Wars themselves leaned into it. In the Dark Falcon set, which is an alternate universe version of the Millennium Falcon, there's a Darth Jar Jar minifigure. He's wearing Sith robes and has a red lightsaber, and it's Lego's way of acknowledging the fan theory. It's such a ridiculous and fun reference that you can't help but love it. But this next minifigure is one of the weirdest ones in this whole video. Now, obviously, Lego's made special minifigures for the Star Wars advent calendars before, and most of the time they aren't canon. Like, when have you ever seen Darth Vader in a Christmas sweater? But this C-3PO is actually canon. In The Rise of Skywalker, Babu Frick was accessing his memory and needed him to translate something in a Sith language. However, C-3PO was programmed to not be able to do this, so to make it happen, Babu put him in a restricted mode which turned his eyes red. So even though this wasn't as cool as C-3PO turns to the dark side, the minifigure is definitely still referencing something very canon to the story. And speaking of stories, a lot of minifigures actually have their own lore. Starting off with an insane connection between the Parisian restaurant set and the Natural History Museum set. Both of these sets are in the modular buildings theme, and in case you didn't know, this theme has one of the most in-depth plot lines out of any Lego branded theme. But for now, I want to focus on the artist in the Parisian restaurant. I talked about this artist in a different video, and how he's basically based on Piet Mondrian, the man behind the inspiration for Lego's original colors. But his minifigure counterpart can do a lot more than just paint. On page 93 of the instructions for the Natural History Museum set, you'll find an interesting piece of lore about the pottery. It reads, "These highly detailed replicas of ancient pottery were created specifically for the museum by the artists living above 10243 Parisian Restaurant." It's a really small piece of lore, but it's a great way to build up the world around the modular buildings theme. It isn't the only piece of minifigure lore hiding in this set though. There's a man from the Lego Adventurers theme known as Dr. Kilroy. He's had a few different names and outfits over the years, but Dr. Kilroy is how most people know him. He's an expert archaeologist who knows everything from the cultures of ancient civilizations to dinosaurs based on their skeletons. And no matter how dangerous an adventure is, he's always down for the fight. No matter where he is in the world, he's always seen with a red bow tie and a white pith helmet. But after all the years of adventuring, he took off his helmet and settled down as the curator of the Natural History Museum, where he still wears his bright red bow tie. It only makes sense that someone with so much knowledge would end up working at a museum. But there's something about Dr. Kilroy I haven't told you yet. He's actually the uncle of Johnny Thunder, the hero of the Lego Adventurers theme, and he taught Johnny everything he knows. The two traveled everywhere together, and Johnny ended up making a pretty big name for himself. So big, in fact, that there's a picture of him in the Mummy Museum set from the Scooby-Doo theme. Johnny's story is a lot like his uncle's, but because of the fame, he can be found in a million different places in Lego. I can make an entire video just about Johnny's lore, so if you want that, let me know in the comments and subscribe to see it when it comes out. Anyways, Johnny Thunder and Dr. Kilroy aren't the only minifigures in the Adventurers theme with lore across different sets, because Samuel Sinister also has a pretty cool story. This guy first showed up in the Egypt sub-theme, and just like Johnny and his uncle, he also has a few different names. But one that you might recognize is Baron von Baron. You won't recognize it because he's famous or anything. You'll recognize it because of the Haunted House set from the Icons theme. The name of the set is just Haunted House, but the actual name of the house is Manor von Baron, and it belongs to Baron von Baron. This guy was the main villain in the Adventurers theme, and wherever Johnny Thunder went, he went too. The two were always competing to see who could find the coolest stuff first. But while Johnny Thunder was donating what he found to museums, Baron Von Barron kept everything for himself, and this haunted house set is where he keeps his most prized possessions, which of course includes a giant portrait of himself. I mean, he is a villain after all. But why exactly is his house haunted? Well, Baron wasn't exactly wary of who he was stealing from, because on one of his adventures, he disturbed the tomb of Pharaoh Hotep. Him and Johnny were both in this tomb, but Baron tried to steal a ruby, and Pharaoh Hotep wasn't very happy about this. So he dragged him into the unknown and trapped him in the mummy's curse, which consisted of Pharaoh Hotep cracking off incredibly corny jokes until the Baron went mad. So that's why his house is haunted, and it's also why the ruby never made it into his collection. But something he did manage to steal was the Orb of Ogle, and while the orb itself isn't very important, the man behind it is. His name is Evil Ogle, and he's the main villain in a theme called Alpha Team. This theme came out back in 2001, so would you believe me if I told you that Evil Ogle has a connection to the castle theme? He's connected specifically to the Second Knight's Kingdom sub-theme, but he's the great-grandson of the main villain in the theme, Vladek. Now, even though the Second Knight's Kingdom sub-theme came out 3 years after Alpha Team, the story in the LEGO universe goes back 6 generations, since Vladek is from medieval times and Ogle is from the future. But how do we even know this is true? Well, the LEGO Club used to interview Minifigures, and they interviewed Ogle back in 2005. Along with him saying he's changing his name to Misunderstood Ogle because nobody understands him. Bro's emo, I guess. He also says that just like great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Vladek, he hates summer. Now, I have no idea why this guy hates summer, so if you do, let me know in the comments. But this is the perfect example of a fun little piece of lore hiding deep within LEGO. The best pieces of lore in LEGO, though, are the ones that LEGO themselves don't even talk about. Over the years, we've seen different minifigures live out their entire lives across different sets. And when LEGO does this, they don't even say a word. One of the most popular examples of this is the baby from LEGO City. We first saw him in the Fun in the Park set from 2016. Then 2 years later, we saw him and his parents go camping in the Pickup and Caravan set. And to end it off, we saw him go camping with a family of his own in the Holiday Camper Van set from 2021. These 3 sets were released over the course of 5 years, and all 3 of them showed this guy at 3 different stages in his life. But the thing is, not every minifigure's life is this peaceful and happy. This guy got to live his life going camping with family, but the skater minifigure had a much worse fate. He made his appearance in Series 1 of the collectible minifigure packs, all the way back in 2010. But by 2015, he'd somehow died and turned into a zombie. I don't know where this guy was for this to happen to him, but in 2015, LEGO released a book called I Love That Minifigure, which came with the zombified skater as an exclusive. Obviously, this is a pretty dark plotline for a minifigure, but unfortunately, this is nothing out of the ordinary for LEGO, because they did something similar with 2 other minifigures too. The first one I'll talk about is the Lumberjack. This guy came in Series 5 of the minifigure packs, which came out in 2011. Now, the thing about these minifigure packs is that after a few years of making them, LEGO started giving some of them themes, and making every minifigure match that theme. Like how Series 26's theme was space, and how Series 14's was Halloween themed. But if you look closely at the werewolf minifigure in Series 14, you'll probably notice how similar his outfit looks to the Lumberjacks from Series 5. And that's because it isn't just similar, it's the same outfit on the same guy. The werewolf even has the name tag on his shirt to prove it. At least the Lumberjack got to live though, because I can't say the same for an underwater diver in the Aqua Raiders theme. Now, I'm not sure exactly which diver this is, but if you look at this picture of the Portal of Atlantis set from the Atlantis theme, you'll see this skeleton with a helmet on laying in front of the gate. And if you look closely at the helmet, you'll see that it's the exact same kind the divers in Aqua Raiders wore, which means this skeleton is a dead diver from Aqua Raiders. I guess one of them was able to make the discovery of a lifetime, but unfortunately, that meant their lifetime had to be cut short. Now, the Portal to Atlantis set was literally the first set in the Atlantis theme, so if we skip ahead about 20 sets to the Deep Sea Raider, we can find another piece of minifigure lore. But for it to make sense, I have to tell you about a man named Dr. Brains. This guy was the scientist in the Power Miners theme, a theme that ended the same year Atlantis started. Power Miners was all about exploring underground, while Atlantis was about exploring underwater. Once the Power Miners project ended, Dr. Brains just wasn't satisfied, and wanted to keep exploring the lower regions of Earth. So instead of giving up, he decided to become a diver for the Atlantis project. He even used the same name, so you know for sure it's him. Minifigures go through career changes like this all the time. I mean, what else are you supposed to do when LEGO retires your theme? And another minifigure with a similar story is Solomon Blaze from Galaxy Squad. This is a sub-theme to the space theme, and it was only around in 2013. Solomon was the leader of the blue team, but since this sub-theme didn't exist for very long, there isn't that much information on him. Once Galaxy Squad retired though, Solomon went on to lead the Ultra Agents in the Ultra Agents theme. This theme only came out 1 year after Galaxy Squad was retired, but I guess in the LEGO universe, the time between these two themes was a lot longer, because Solomon went gray, and I think he even got a prosthetic leg too. Galaxy Squad and Ultra Agents were both about fighting crime, so I guess losing a leg makes sense. But when you make a theme about secret agents fighting insane villains, you're bound to end up with someone like the Spy. This guy's story is very hard to follow, so I guess he's really good at his job. He was first released in Series 16 of the minifigure packs, but according to LEGO, he's been around for way longer than that. We just never knew it. The official description for him is on Brickopedia, and the original source from LEGO's website is gone. So LEGO's accidentally doing a really good job of covering up his past, which is very fitting. His description says that he's codenamed Agent A, and that his first recorded mission was for an organization called Alpha Team. Several years later, he was spotted infiltrating the volcano lair of Dr. Inferno shortly before its implosion. Although presumed lost in the line of duty, he resurfaced in the daring rescue of captured Galaxy Squad pilot Solomon Blaze from alien bugoids before disappearing once again. Now, there are absolutely no visuals for this, which is why it's so hard to follow. I mean, the only set that got named was the volcano base in the Agents theme. And of course, since he's a spy, he's not on the list of minifigures that come with this set. The Spy is one of the most elusive minifigures in all of LEGO. And since literally every theme he's involved with is retired now, it's gonna stay that way. Probably. The truth is, LEGO could just bring him back out of nowhere in 2, 5, or even 10 years. When LEGO builds a story around a character, they like to keep it going for as long as possible, like our GOAT Johnny Thunder. But they also like to make it as deep as possible. So allow me to introduce you to someone with a surprisingly deep story, the Detective. LEGO's made a lot of detectives over the years, but this one in particular was released in Series 5 of the minifigure packs back in 2011. He's said to be an incredible detective who's solved many mysteries, including the Brickster's baffling brick napping from LEGO Island. But what is this mystery? Well, the Brickster is a minifigure from the Island Extreme Stunts theme from 2001, but it goes back further than that. Before it was a theme, Island Extreme Stunts was actually a video game called LEGO Island. It came out in 1997, and the main plot of it was to catch a Brickster. He had broken out of jail and was stealing a bunch of stuff all over the island, and if it weren't for the detective, he probably never would have gotten caught. LEGO Island has gained a huge fan base over the years, probably because of how deep the lore is, so it's no wonder there's another character that gets referenced too, the Infomaniac. This guy is basically the narrator of the LEGO Island games. When you first load into the game, he shows up and tells you how to sign in so you can actually play. And after that, he kind of just guides you through the rest of the game. In the real world, he's only been in 3 different sets, one of which was a polybag dedicated to him, so that one doesn't even really count. But the other 2 were set 6740, the Extreme Tower, and set 9247, Community Workers. His entire thing is that he's an information hub and is always willing to help, and he was actually spotted doing his job in a very odd place, the Monkey Kid's City of Lantern set. This city is pretty big, and might be a little bit confusing if you've never been there before. So to help you out, the Infomaniac is just chilling at the bottom of the city. A lot of minifigure stories get continued like this, where LEGO just throws them in as Easter eggs in some random set. And one minifigure with a surprisingly funny story like this is the GOAT. It was super rare and expensive, and for a while, LEGO only used the mold one time. But we weren't the only ones freaking out about the GOAT. Minifigures were too. Originally, the GOAT was only in the Mill Village Raid set from 2011, and as the years went on, more and more people started to realize that this was the only time LEGO used the actual mold for the minifigure, let alone the minifigure itself. Because of this, it got super popular, and LEGO literally never said a word about it. That is, until they released the Ninjago City Market set in 2023, and they finally broke the silence. One of the stickers in the set shows someone looking for a missing goat. A lot of people took this as a hint that the goat would finally be coming back, and they were actually right. In January of 2024, LEGO put the goat in Series 25 of the minifigure packs, making it the second LEGO product to use the goat mold. It doesn't end there though. Just a few months later, LEGO released the Medieval Town Square set, and one of the stickers in that set shows that someone put the goat they were selling on sale. This was obviously because LEGO put it in the Series 25 pack, and since it was finally back, prices for the goat had gone way down. See what I mean now? Even the minifigures were tapped in. But not every story ends so happily, and if you look at the Hidden Side theme, you find a lot more horror stories than anything else. This theme was known for ghosts possessing inanimate objects, but they also possessed people. Characters like Dwayne, Scott Francis, and Chef Enzo all got possessed in different sets, and LEGO made sure we knew, because they made minifigures of them before and after the possession. It might have been better for them if they just died, like Sam Sinister in the Haunted House set. Now, if you watched my first video about minifigure lore, you already know that he was the main villain in the LEGO Adventurers theme, and that he got his own Haunted House set called Manor von Baron, which was haunted by Pharaoh Hotep. But there's something about this set that I didn't tell you. If you go upstairs to one of the rooms, there's a skeleton hanging upside down from the ceiling wearing a top hat. Now, at first, this just seems like a creepy decoration for a haunted house. But if you actually read the official instructions for the set, there's a line of text that changes everything. It says, "Some say Sam Sinister's car exploded while running from the law, leaving only his skeleton and top hat behind." Now, you might be wondering what this has to do with Baron, but Sam Sinister is actually one of his other identities. So this isn't just a random skeleton that LEGO threw in to make the house look scary. This is literally Baron von Baron's dead body hanging in his own house. Or is it? The instructions also say that some say there was once a third twin butler, and that no one knows for sure. So did the Baron fake his death? Is this really him? We have no idea. But this next minifigure is 100% dead. No questions asked. Blacktron Future Generation, also known as Blacktron 2, was a space sub-theme that ran from 1991 to 1994. The minifigs were basically just doing villain stuff for 3 years, but then the theme ended in 1994, and everyone kind of forgot about them. But fast forward over a decade to 2009, and LEGO releases a Nintendo DS game called LEGO Battles, and one of the storylines is about the Mars mission theme. There's an intro cutscene that plays when you first start, and in this cutscene, an astronaut named Biff lands on the Martian surface and walks right past a skeleton wedged in between two rocks. If you pause the cutscene and actually look at that skeleton, it's wearing the full Blacktron uniform, so this is without a doubt a dead Blacktron member. This is super similar to the Aqua Raiders minifigure that died in the Atlantis theme, only this time this Blacktron skeleton didn't even get a real-life minifigure. But here's the thing. Dying wasn't even the worst thing that happened to a Blacktron astronaut. In 2024, Series 26 of the collectible minifigures came out. The theme for that series was space, and one of the minifigures is called the Blacktron Mutant. This minifigure shows a Blacktron 2 astronaut who's in the middle of a biological transformation. One of his arms is split and mutating, and one of his legs is already fully gone. According to the official description, this transformation was caused by exposure to alien technology. But there are transformations that are way worse than this, especially in the Hidden Side theme. This theme ran from 2019 to 2020, and it was all about a town named Newberry that got invaded by ghosts. This wasn't your typical ghost story, where spirits just float around and scare people. The ghosts were transforming people into monsters, and one of the most disturbing transformations is the Bawa. Before everything went wrong, this guy was just a normal train conductor. He worked for the Southeast Berrymont Engine Railroads, and during the Newberry haunting, something called a gloom mutation hit him. In Hidden Side lore, gloom mutations are what happens when humans get transformed into something from cosmic horror. So this regular train conductor got turned into a bat zombie hybrid thing. He even got a superpower that paralyzes his prey. But the Bawa's story is nothing compared to what happened to Anomalo. This guy used to be a high-class seafood chef. He was successful and good at his job, but then the Newberry haunting happened, and his soul didn't just get corrupted. It got merged with cockroaches, multiple of them, and somehow it gets even worse. He didn't just transform and then live as a monster. He became one of Lady E's tools in her soul collecting mission. Lady E is the main villain of the Hidden Side theme, and her whole goal was to collect souls for whatever evil reason. Anomalo now has extra arms growing out of his body and tentacles that move on their own, and he's being used as a tool to help collect more souls. But let's move away from horror for a second and talk about something way more lighthearted. In Lego City, there's a criminal who's become kind of a legend among fans, and his name is Stumpy. This guy first showed up in a set called Wild River Escape, and he's a criminal who stole some treasure and is trying to escape the police on a raft. And apparently, he was able to get away because he shows up in a completely different set called Mountain Police Headquarters, and he's disguised himself as a tree to avoid getting caught by the Mountain Police. Because of this disguise, Lego gave him the nickname Stumpy, and it's one of the funniest Lego City criminal disguises by far. And speaking of Lego criminals, let me tell you about a manhunt that's been happening across multiple different CMF series. In 2013, Series 13 of the CMF came out, and one of the minifigs was the Sheriff. His official bio says that he's captured every single outlaw in the West, except for one guy who keeps getting away. And if you look at the wanted poster that comes with him, it shows the Bandit from Series 6, which came out 3 years earlier in 2010. So Lego made a storyline where this sheriff has been hunting one specific criminal for 3 real-world years across 7 different minifigure series. But now, let me show you a transformation that took over 30 years to be revealed. Back in the 1990s, there was a castle sub-theme called Fright Nights, and the main villain was a character named Basil the Bat Lord. The Fright Nights theme was all about this spooky medieval horror aesthetic, and Basil was at the center of it as the big bad guy. The theme ended in the 90s, and Basil kind of just disappeared from Lego. But then in 2024, over 30 years later, Series 25 of the CMF came out, and one of them was called the Vampire Knight. At first, this just looks like a random vampire wearing knight armor, but if you take off the helmet and look at his face, you see that he has a very distinctive mustache, the exact same one that Basil had back in the 90s. Turns out, this is the official canonical fate of Basil. He became an actual vampire at some point after his theme ended. But enough about transformations. With this next minifigure, Lego expanded the lore in a way that made us completely rethink what we knew about him. In the 90s, there was a castle sub-theme called Wolfpack, and back then, they were just known as Forest Bandits. That was pretty much their entire identity. But then in 2025, Series 27 of the CMF came out, and one of them is the Wolfpack Beastmaster. This character has an actual wolf companion, and the description tells us something that completely changes the wolf pack. They weren't just random bandits who liked wolves. They were actually a culture with deep ties to the animal kingdom. The wolf pack had a genuine connection with wolves and other animals. Lego completely humanized them with just one minifigure. But now, let me show you a character who waited 22 years to get a physical minifigure. In 1999, Lego released a video game called Lego Racers, and the final boss was a character named Rocket Racer, but he only existed in the video game. There was no physical minifigure of him. Now, fast forward 22 years to 2021, and Lego releases a city stunt set, and in that set is finally a physical Rocket Racer minifigure. And Lego didn't just throw together some random racer and call him Rocket Racer either. The details here are matched perfectly. And speaking of characters who waited decades to show up, let me tell you about Camilla and Bo-Son Will. Way back in 1989, Lego published a Pirates comic book. In that comic, there was a character named Camilla, who was the Admiral's daughter, and she had a crush on a character named Bo-Son Will, who was the quartermaster on Redbeard's pirate ship. These characters existed in one comic book and weren't seen again until this year, when the minifigure vending machine set came out. In that set, there are grown-up versions of Camilla and Bo-Son Will, and according to the lore, Camilla didn't just grow up. She followed in her father's footsteps and got promoted all the way to Admiral herself. So we're seeing a romance that started in a 1989 comic book finally get updated 37 years later, and it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation, which is pretty funny for Lego. However, Ninjago has always been a theme with super deep lore. And I'm gonna tell you about a character who's been part of that lore since the very beginning, but only just got a physical minifigure. The first Spin Jitsu Master. This guy is basically the god of the Ninjago universe. He's the one who created Spin Jitsu and created the world of Ninjago itself. He's been mentioned in flashbacks and referenced for years as this legendary figure, but you never saw his face clearly, and there was never a physical minifigure of him that you could actually buy. That is until until this year, when the Old Town set came out to celebrate Ninjago's 15th anniversary. This set finally gives us the first Spinjitzu master with a fully revealed face, which is so sick. He's like the most important person in all of Ninjago. And while we're on Ninjago, there's another character who finally got a physical minifigure recently. Liber. She's in the Ninja Character Display set, and if you're not deep into Ninjago lore, you might not know that she's Jay's biological mother. Jay is one of the main ninja, and he's the Master of Lightning. But before him, that title belonged to Liber. In the story, there was an event called the Serpentine War that happened generations before the current ninja team was even born. And during that war, there were elemental masters who fought to protect Ninjago. Eventually, Liber ended up becoming the Master of Lightning, and she passed that power down to her son Jay. But until the character display set came out, she'd only been mentioned in backstories. So now we finally have a physical minifigure. But there's one more Ninjago character I just have to talk about: Crux. Crux is a villain who posed as a museum curator named Dr. Sanders Saunders. His whole deal was that he was pretending to be this curator while secretly being a villain with evil plans. Way back in 2017, LEGO made a minifigure of his younger self in a set called Dawn of Iron Doom. But for 8 years, there was no minifigure of his older disguised version as Dr. Saunders until 2026, when the Old Town set came out and LEGO finally gave us one. And here's what makes this minifigure so perfect. It has a double-sided head, one that shows his friendly curator expression and another that shows his angry villain face. LEGO literally built his double identity into the physical minifigure, which is awesome. But now, let me show you a really deep connection over 25 years of LEGO history. In the Monkey Kid theme, there's a set called the City of Lanterns, and in that set, there are these robots called Citybots A05 and A16. They're just background characters helping out in the city, but if you look closely at their heads, you'll notice that they're using a very specific head print, and it's actually the exact same one that robots in the Spyrius and Explorian subthemes used in the 90s. These Citybots are a direct reference to a droid in the Mystic Mountain time-lapse set from 1996, which is super specific. And speaking of space subthemes continuing in modern themes, there's an alien character in the Space Police 3 subtheme named Craniac. But if you look at his back, he has the 1998 Insectoids logo printed on him. And weirdly, his original name was Insectoid Zim. In the lore of the Insectoids theme, there were these refugees called Zotaxians who came from a planet called Holux. And apparently, these refugees didn't just disappear when Insectoids ended in 1999. They became part of the far future Space Police Society, and Craniac is the proof. But now, let me tell you about a minifigure whose job description is absolutely wild when you think about it: the Zookeeper. She came out in Series 5 of the CMF way back in 2011, and obviously she seems like a normal city zookeeper. But if you read her official bio, you find out that she's not just responsible for taking care of animals in LEGO City. She takes care of creatures from a bunch of different LEGO themes. She manages dragons from the castle theme, rock monsters from the Power Miners theme, and even escaped dinosaurs that were brought back from Dino Island. So this one woman is basically running a zoo for every kind of animal in existence. But not every piece of minifigure lore is about big storylines and connecting themes. Sometimes the lore is just really personal and sweet, like Rocket Boy from Series 17, who's based on a real person. Specifically, he's a sig fig based on senior design manager Tara Weich's son. She's one of the designers at LEGO, and her son was obsessed with space exploration when he was younger. So she designed a minifigure based on him and made it a reality. It's not the craziest piece of lore, but it's super wholesome, so I had to talk about it. But what secrets surprised you the most in this video? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.